I'm Lenny Hart, and you're listening to Zachary Borrego, Bad Moon Rising!
All right, hello, welcome everyone to the podcast. Today we have a special guest joining us from the land down under, Mr. Jake Honeybear Heun. How you doing, Jake?
Good, man. Appreciate being on. It's going to be a good one.
Thank you so much. First of all, where'd you get the nickname Honeybear?
Back in the day, I was training under Chris Lieben in Hawaii, and I was cornering him for his fight against Vanderlei Silva. Mm-hmm. And he was all delirious while he was cutting weight, and he had a little bear of honey that he was using like little shots. And he looked at it, he said, "Oh, this thing looks like Jake." Jake's. He just stuck from there.
What year was that?
That would have been, I don't even know. It was UFC 132. It was Faber and Dominic Cruz was the main event, and Chris and Vanderlei were the co-main. So it was a long time ago.
Damn. So when did you know that you were going to be a martial artist? What did you do in high school? First of all, did you play football, anything like that?
Yeah. I wrestled in high school. I played football, and then I played football for the University of Hawaii after that. And then just always figured I'd jump into fighting afterwards, just because. Yeah, we'd sit around drinking beers and watching the fights and stuff. Something I was going to head towards, and just kind of jumped into
it. So you played. What was the first fight you think you saw? Do you remember that?
Man, I honestly remember watching in high school. Me and my buddies would go and rent the old tapes, like the old UFC and the old Pride tapes. Mm-hmm. I remember watching the Emmanuel Yarborough fight, really young, and then they were fighting with this kid from, I don't remember his name. He was called the Polar Bear. He's from Fairbanks, Alaska. He wore a wrestling sandal and got his ass kicked. I remember that one. And then they used to have the old K1 fights on TV a lot. So I'd watch a lot of K1, like late night K1 fights, like K1 Max when that was on.
So you grew up in Alaska?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Cold and dark. It was cool, man. It's a cool spot to grow up. It's different, you know.
What took you away from there? Because as I said, you're in Australia now. Where did you go after Alaska?
Yeah, from Alaska, I went down to California. I went to the junior college there for a bit, and then transferred out to the University of Hawaii. Got a football scholarship out there. Lived out there for like 5 years, and then spent a little bit of time in Utah training with Jeremy Heun. And then from there, I went out to American Top Team in South Florida, and then split between there and Austin, Texas a bit, kind of trained with Tim Kennedy and those guys, and then would go back to Florida. And then from there, I decided to just throw in the towel and get on a plane and go to Thailand. Just kind of lived out there, going back and forth for a bit, and then just ended up spending about 3 years straight living in Thailand. And then I met my missus there, and now we're in Australia.
Wow, what a journey, man. What the hell? From Alaska to Hawaii is already enough. You know what I mean? So when you fought in Alaska, did you have any amateur fights there? Because that was where you started your MMA career, right?
No, I actually had my one and only amateur fight while I was still on the football team at Hawaii. Oh, wow. So I had an amateur fight, and then I was still living in Hawaii when I fought in Alaska. So they flew me up to do my first pro fight up there.
What, just because you had some connects there, or what?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And what was the rule set like? Did you wear any headgear or anything like that your first amateur fight?
No, man. The AMI scene in Hawaii, I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was 4-ounce gloves, knees to the head, everything. It was a project that I didn't get paid for.
What about in Alaska? What were the rules like, or do you know what it's like now? Is it still the same? Is there knees to the grounded opponent, things like that?
Alaska's pretty much unified rules now. They don't have a commission, but they fight under the unified. They bring up refs from down in the States and stuff, and it's a good scene up there. I fought the first in January this year. My first fight this year, I was actually back in Alaska, and I had a fight on the AFC up there, and they actually do a good show up there. They put together good sized crowds. There's probably 6,000 people there, something like that. And they sell the arenas there. There ain't shit else to do in Alaska in the middle of winter.
Right. Well, and they don't have a football team or anything like that. That probably helps, huh?
Yeah.
So how many fights did you have? Because you fought in Pro Elite, you fought in World Series of Fighting. We'll get to all that, but how many fights were in Alaska? Your first few, or?
No, just the first one, and then I signed with Pro Elite.
And how'd you get that opportunity? Do you remember that?
They're just from being out in Hawaii, and I knew TJ Thompson from training out there, and he kind of hooked me up, and him and Rich Cho, who's Bellator now, they brought me in. You know, the Pro Elite could have been a cool thing the way they were running it. It's just, you know, I think it's a typical scene with those ones. They throw too much money around too quick and tend to go under.
Yeah, kind of like Affliction, you know, some of these good MMA things come up and then they go down. That's why we'll get to Rizin, you know what I mean? And hopefully that continues. So you had that, and then you had a chance on what, the Ultimate Fighter, what was it, 17, I believe, something like that?
I went on 17 and 19. 17, I cut 55 pounds in 5 weeks. Like it was a bit silly on my part.
Oh my God.
You know, I was young and stupid, and I was focused. Like at that point, I was like, I want to go to the UFC. I want to go to the UFC. You know, I think a lot of young fighters, they kind of fall into that mindset of like it's UFC or nothing. Man, if anybody is listening to this and they happen to be young in their career, that ain't the business, bro. There's way better places. You get treated way better out there. So don't focus on that shit. UFC ain't the be all end all.
Well, and I think a lot of fans get confused just because it's the mainstream thing, especially here in the States, you know. And I've had a lot of fans ask me, well, if Jake Heun and these guys are so good, how come they're not in the UFC? I'm like, maybe they choose not to be. You ever think about that?
100%. I get asked that question. I'm like, oh, so like, you know, you're on a big win streak right now. You think maybe you'll get signed by the UFC? And I'm like, I'm interested in the UFC. I make more money and get treated way better in Japan. Like I desire to go to the UFC. It's ridiculous there. And like,
right.
It'll get switched up to where people don't see like the sport as UFC. Right. You know, I think it'd be great. You know, if continues to do what it's doing. And I mean, shit, Pride was kicking goals back before the UFC was doing anything. Mm-hmm. You know, if we get back to that, great. Hopefully, we have a big New Year's Eve show and, you know, kind of starts kind of springboarding.
You know, you're right about that. I think fans haven't been long-term fans, don't remember this, but Pride had multiple divisions where they were the best organization in the world, right? I mean, there was no contest, you know, and they were starting to come to America and sell out shows, and that's why the UFC had to buy them and Strikeforce and stuff out. And, you know, I think we're just dealing with some fans that have just started along the journey, and so they think, like you said, MMA is UFC, but I could attest to the fact that there's as much talent outside the UFC as there is in the UFC, and, you know, there's not all the best to every division there. What was your time on it? Why did you cut 55 pounds in 5 weeks, first of all?
So they originally had planned on doing a mixed season at light heavy and at middle. And then midway through like the selection process, they called me up like, hey, so we're getting rid of the light heavyweights. We want to keep you on if you think you can make middleweight. I was like, well, okay, I'm already losing weight. Might as well make a run at it. Right. So, and to this point, I'd never fought anything other than heavyweight. So I'd never cut weight in the first place.
Wow. And how old were you at this time? 25, 26?
24, I think, 24, 25, yeah.
So what was that like, cutting all that weight? Because you still fight at light heavyweight now. Do you cut a lot of weight for that?
Yeah, I cut a fair amount now. Like I'm thinking in kilos these days. Like I walk around probably like 108 kilos. So that's like 230. Mm-hmm. Call that like 235, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then then I'm down to 93 from there. It's decent.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I said, yeah, it's a decent cut, but it's nothing like trying to get down to, you know, freaking 84 or something like that.
Right. Well, you didn't look that much. What did you weigh in the Rocky Martinez fight compared to the Vitaly Shemtov fight?
Rocky, I was 108, and then for Vitaly, I weighed in at 93, but then I was probably back in the ring the next day at 101, 102.
Well, when did you start using kilos? Because surely in Alaska they were using pounds too.
Everywhere it's probably from living in Thailand to start thinking in kilos because we were training with other guys, and then, you know, I mean, a lot of guys don't think about this. When I have a contracted weight at 93 kilos, it ain't 205 pounds. It's 93 kilos, and there is a difference of those two weights, 204.6.
Right. Right.
It's very different. You got to kind of like, it doesn't do me any good to get on the scale in the morning and look at my weight in pounds. Right. If I'm going to be weighing it. in kilos. So it's just easier to think in kilos now.
And do you use kilometers as well?
God, no. I refuse.
You haven't changed that much then.
No, I talk like, yeah, man, it's like 3 miles up that way. And then like, it's what?
Where exactly are you at in Australia? West Coast or East Coast?
We're down south. I guess this would be south, yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's Melbourne. So Melbourne's down like it's on the south of like the little ass end of it down there.
Okay.
It's dope down there. It reminds me a lot of like a little bit of like San Francisco, Seattle kind of vibes.
Wow. And how long have you been there?
Been here since January. So about 9 months. What is it now? 10 months.
Still kind of get used to it, probably, huh?
Yeah. Still trying to get the feel.
Have you? What is the MMA scene like down there? Have you been to any fights there?
I've been to one I went to one local fight out here. They have the Hex MMA's out here. It's on Fight Pass, so like people can check that out. It's good, man. There's a decent level for sure, but it's growing. I think is what the best way to like. There's a real discrepancy. I think there's guys that are pretty damn good, and then underneath, there's not a lot of that middle ground.
Okay. And so then, you know, you go out throughout your career, you were signed to World Series of Fighting and Road FC, right? Were these just multiple fight contracts? Do you remember what was that like?
Yeah, I had a multi-fight deal with World Series, and then my with Road was a one-off contract. I don't even know. That Road's an interesting scenario. It's a fun place to go fight. Korea is great, but their contracts and stuff, what the hell they were trying to do at the time over there. Well,
Rizin gets a lot of fighters from there and from Real FC, and they're both like that. You know what I mean? It's like, are they signed to there or not?
yeah, I know what's going on with them. So that's the time I was trying to get on Rizin. I'd had a bout agreement with a first show with Road, excuse me, and I ended up not getting a visa into China, so that I ended up getting on to Shingo and being like, hey, the fight with Road is off. Can I get on this show?
Wow.
And it ended up. I don't think it worked. Yeah, it did end up coming together, but it was a pain in the ass just trying to deal with all.
How long were you aware of Rizin?
I've been aware of Rizin since from the beginning. You know, I've always been a Japanese MMA fan. Like, you know, I watched Pride, and then when Dream was on, I was watching Dream. I was always trying to get fights with Dream. Actually, you go back to the Pro Elite stuff. They were co-promoting with Dream, so they brought over on my last show there when we fought in Hawaii. It was Pro Elite's last show. They brought over Mitsugaki and a couple other guys, and they fought over there. And I was really hoping we were going to be able to kind of do a talent share back and forth. But then Dream folded, and then shortly thereafter, Pro Elite folded. So.
Right. But you've been watching Rizin. You were so it's fair to say that you were actively trying to get on one of their cards just because of how amazing it was.
Bro, I used to blow Shingo up to the point where he'd be like, stop bothering me while you're signed with another organization. Like, no, I'm going to do
that. And as part of it, because I've seen you talk about this on Twitter, is part of it the fact that you don't have to use unified rules? I mean, beyond being in Japan, we'll get to that stuff, but the unified rules thing, is that a big thing for you to not have to use those?
It's massive for me. Like, I really, really, really like Rizin rule set. I really enjoy fighting in a ring too. I think stylistically for me, the ring's better. I think watching in a ring kind of makes for a more active fight. You know, I think a lot of guys when the cage is involved, they can wall stall guys, and it's just the guy that's getting pressed up against the fence too. Guys get comfortable there and they'll just chill out, getting pressed up against the fence. Whereas if you're on the ropes, that shit ain't gonna work. You gotta work to get off. And I think it's more conducive for striking. And you know what, the soccer kicks and stuff, I know it almost seems cliche, I'm always talking about it, but soccer kicks and knees to the head, you know, it completely changes the game on the ground. Makes it so wrestlers can't get in there and just get lazy on a single leg, or jiu-jitsu guys, go ahead, get back and try and bite me into your guard, because I'm going to kick you in the head.
Right.
You know,
I was just talking to a friend earlier, and I'll ask you the same question. If you could change one thing about unified rules, would it be adding soccer kicks or adding knees to the head? Which one do you think makes more difference?
I honestly think that that knees to the head make a big difference because there's so many positions, like just when you're in side control or even in half guard. I mean, if you watch my Shemtov fight, he was diving in on a half guard, and I started kneeing him in the head right there, and guys just don't expect that type of shit.
Right.
Soccer kicks, I think they're a game changer. I try to use them a lot because they're there a lot when people don't think they are. I think it'd just be difficult for the people who are, you want to call them just those UFC zombies.
Right.
They're never going to wrap their heads around this shit.
Well, and I don't know. I'm hoping that maybe Bellator or someone will come around and help the Unified Rules Committee or whatever it is change the knees to the head of a grounded opponent.
Yeah.
It's not any different from a knee to the head when you're standing, right? The only difference, like you said, is that I see all the time is that somebody could stall you in a single leg position so easily, but if you can knee them to the head, they're not even going for that position. Right?
You're not going to sit this holding on to a single elbow if you can knee them in the head,
Right.
And you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you can create more force coming down with that elbow right there with somebody sitting on a single knee. So it's not an issue of safety. It's just an issue. It's an issue. It's the optics on it. Is what
I was
it is.
going to say, you look at, you saw Kaya Asakura fight Ilka Sasaki last Rizin, and he broke his jaw with his hands. But he landed some vicious knees on the ground. But it was his hands that did all the damage that, messed up Ilka's jaw. You know what I mean? I think, like you said, it's the optics of it. But, I've seen the knees be game changers. I just wish that the Unified Rules would get with it, and that brings me to a fan question real quick. Someone asked, do you see good matchups? Surely you got to be looking at the Bellator roster, right? Because as a co-promoting, do you see a lot of good matchups there? If Bellator offered you a fight there, would you take something like that?
Yeah, 100%. There's some great matchups for me in Bellator. Because I am a Rizin guy, would prefer to fight those guys under Rizin rules. If something were to arise where I said, Jake, you want to go fight in Bellator, I could do that. But I prefer to bring Bellator and bring those guys over to Japan and fight them in the ring and do it like that. But there's some great matchups. I think Linton Vassal's an interesting matchup. I think Phil Davis is a very interesting matchup for me. There's some guys at middleweight I'd love to get in there and get around with. I'd love to have a go with me, Machida and Musasi, those guys. And then word on the streets is Vitor's coming back and he's a big boy. So that would be the match. Like,
yeah, I've seen a couple pictures of him, and he looks like old Vitor. Let's just say that.
It looks like our old friend TRT Vitor is back,
right. Which we love. We welcome that. Well, and then you got people like Carl Albrechtsen, who just went to Bellator, was in Rizin. He's put up some good fights in Rizin. I think a lot of these guys go from Rizin or Pride, like Crow Cop did, and they go to the cage and they don't look quite the same. What's the adjustment period like, do you think, going from a ring to a cage?
It's just a difference in just like kind of, you have to really be aware of your surroundings on it. Whereas, Crow Cop, I think his issue was more that he was still his transition from kickboxing to MMA was in a ring. So he never really had to get used to just that difference of like, there's not corners, there's not the ropes you can kind of angle off of like that. You can get your ass pushed back up into it. And so it takes a bit of adjusting. Honestly, I don't really think that it creates, if you're a striking stylist, it's not that big of a deal unless you're getting forced up against the fence. But if you're a guy who wants to wrestle and stuff like that, then the cage is actually better for you. So for a guy like Albertson, it's probably actually better for him to be fighting in a cage because that dude just wants to grab it. At least that's what my experience said when I watched film on him because I thought I was going to fight him. Yeah, man. I personally think it should be I think everybody should get rid of the cage and go to the ring. That's just me, though. The safety thing on it. I like what M1 does, where they got the little sheet of what do you want to call it? Like a track.
Mesh.
Yeah, it's like at the bottom there, so guys aren't falling out. But then it's a ring. It's so much better for fans.
I think that's a good idea too, because a lot of times we'll see dudes like I think we saw Brandon Halsley diving through the ropes a couple times. It reminded me of like pro wrestling or something. You know what I mean? He went through those ropes a few times.
Fight, but he won the Rumble.
So then you get into Rizin. Your first bout there is now the champ, right? Jiri Prohaska. Really good guy, really good champion. Fair to say that you'd like a rematch crack at him?
Absolutely. Jiri's in the sights for 2020, 100%. It's like you said, I don't got any ill will with Jiri. Jiri is a great guy. He's a consummate martial artist to the point it's like, You're a good guy. I don't feel like I'd want to have a beer with you, but like you're a good dude. So no, he's a great guy. His game's really improved a lot. He really impressed me in his second King Mo fight. I thought he looked really good. I think he's kind of shoring up some holes in his game that holes I didn't take advantage of. When I fought him, I went out and tried to kickbox with the guy. Do the same thing. But yeah, he's looking good, man. He wrecked Machado. I mean, we all saw that coming.
Yeah, well, and like you said, the guy might be a good guy, but you're coming after that title, whoever's holding it, right? I mean, it don't matter. You want that Rizin strap. Speaking of that, do you think that it will be? I mean, word on the street is that Rizin's really trying to actively build the light heavyweight and heavyweight division. Would you like to see a Grand Prix? Would you take part in something like that?
1,000%. I'd sign a dotted line tomorrow.
Have you ever fought more than once in a night?
No, I haven't. I've always wanted to. Excuse me. And I just haven't done it. And, it's I think it definitely presents some challenges that I haven't had to face yet. But definitely something I'd be interested in. I could see that happening in the future. They do want to build the light heavyweight division, like I've been told that specifically. So I think that is a viable method if they want to do it, and if they want to do it in that Japanese Rizin style, that's the way to do it. Is bang us all out in a night and let's see what goes down.
Well, and that's what the fans honestly want to see more than anything is some of the heavier guys, some of the catch weight fights, some of the open weight divisions, things you've seen to start Rizin. And so when you fought Jerry and then you fought Roki next was your next fight? You fought 3 times in Rizin?
Yep, Jerry, then Roki. And yeah, Roki was a tough guy. He's a tough son of a bitch. He was a real tough dude. He came in and went down to throw. He's a good guy.
That was a good brawl, man. That was a good brawl, that fight. That was fun to watch. So then you fight Shemetov, and had you ever seen any tape on this guy or anything? Because
Shemetov, only tape of him dancing and doing other dumb shit on
right. Right. We all wondered where he came from too. All the fans were just rallying for him, and I'm like, what in the world? What's that?
It was insane how much they loved him over there. He's like he's one of these damn social media heroes or something.
Well, and then I come to find out that he was standing outside of arenas and stuff. Him and his brother were outside of the arenas,
screaming at the arena like, "We come Rizin!" Like, God. And now they're back in Russia making videos again about how they want to get on the New Year's Eve card. It's like, bro, come on.
It's cool to see that much passion, though. Where else do you see that much passion? You don't see guys popping out of some snowy forest with a campfire fucking wanting to get in the UFC, right?
No way. Yeah,
so speaking of the New Year's card, I'm surely you've watched these New Year's card. You're going to probably take place in one, it sounds like. Are you mentally preparing yourself for that? Because surely the opening ceremony, all the things about Rizin, do you have to be careful about things like an adrenaline dump with that?
I reckon for other people it might be a bit of an issue, but like I said, when I was playing ball and stuff like that. We had to do all this stuff. We played in front of 110,000 people and stuff like that, so it's a little bit different. You just got to keep all your emotions in check, and it's the same thing. Like I look at it the same way as being backstage. You see these guys that get backstage and they're burning off that nervous energy, and then they end up burning out their real energy. So the smoother you can make everything, the better off it is. That being said, those Rizin opening ceremonies, they will get your butthole puckering. So you gotta not getting too jacked up right beforehand.
Do you remember the first time you heard Lenny Hart saying your name? Surely you were aware of her and everything.
Yeah, Lenny Hart, the first time she called me out was actually in a pro elite fight in Hawaii.
Oh shit. Which one was that?
I had Lenny. That would have been Pro Elite, the third show.
Wow.
They had her. Yeah, so I've had Lenny for Rizin, Road, and Pro Elite.
Wow. She's a legend, man. I mean,
nothing beats it at Saitama though.
No.
Saitama, that's where you're supposed to hear her.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like other places,
So you'll be flying out. How early do you fly out to Japan for your fights usually?
Generally I fly. So the flights are we'll just talk through the past. Generally fight on Sunday, and I try to get them to fly me out on Tuesday. So I'll get there a day early, just because I don't like to feel like I have to rush and everything on the weight cut and just getting everything set up. I ran into it bad when I was flying up for Roki, and luckily it wasn't a big deal because we weren't cutting weight. But flights out of Melbourne were canceled. due to weather. So they were trying to push me back an extra day. I lost it on the flight staff people, not the flight, the ticketing people. Like, you guys need to give me on a flight. I got to be in Japan. It's an 18 flight, so you can't go pushing me an extra day. Like,
Man,
ended up
long of a flight.
And that's the stuff that I don't want to deal with, especially when I'm cutting weight. So I have them fly me in early, and I get there, and I try to keep it super professional that weekly. Like, if I got to get here a day early, my own pocket to do it, I'll do it.
What about the acclimation? Just going from summer to winter, things like that. Is there an elevation difference?
No, like Tokyo's pretty flat, and Melbourne's right at sea level as well. And I'm super lucky. I think Japan's only a 1 hour difference from here. So the guys coming over from the States are the ones I feel for. Because like I fought when I fought in New York for World Series, I was flying over from Thailand, and that's like that 18-hour, like just the worst difference you can possibly get. It's a nightmare. I don't know how boys like Cruikshank and them come over, because they come like he gets in a bit early too, but those guys coming over from the States, like that is a rough time change.
Yeah, you got someone like Johnny Case in the lightweight Grand Prix. That's got to be rough. I always think you've lived at elevation. What was your elevation in Alaska? Do you remember? 6,000 feet, something like that?
Whatever it is, it's high. It's up there.
Did that help? Did that help your conditioning, do you think?
I reckon it did. I reckon more than anything, just the that cold helps with the condition of it. Just you get so used to like that burning lungs.
Mm-hmm. It's a different feeling. I could tell you, training here in Colorado and doing the things I do is totally different than even somewhere like Utah or New Mexico right next to us, right? It just 100%. We have a different level of cold. We spoke about the lightweight Grand Prix. Do you have a pick for that?
I'm gonna go with Tofik Musikaev, however you say his last name. That dude is an animal. I don't know where they found him, but he is an absolute killer. He is frightening. So me and my man were watching it the other night when it was on. We were streaming it down here, and I looked at it and I said, that dude's going to win this whole damn tournament. When he was kicking I don't want to get kicked by that guy, and he's a lightweight.
No, there's certain guys that you watch. Mikuru Asakura is another one. Certain guys that you watch, and even on TV, I'm kind of scared of that guy. You know what I mean? I don't really want to go that route.
He's just so like that former Russian bloc too. Like I'll see him in the elevators and stuff in eyes, and he's just not an ounce of emotion on his face or anything. I was like, "What's up, dude?" He's like, "Hello." Like, oh man, you're a scary guy, aren't you? You're a funny person.
We're going to be lucky enough to have him on the podcast, of course, with the translator, and I'm really looking forward to that. But in some ways, I'm also kind of scared to, look in his eyes and shit. You know what I mean?
Look into those eyes that just want to
you'll be seeing me on the podcast looking this way the whole time, asking questions, right? I think though that this lightweight Grand Prix is really good for MMA. Anybody who's not watching it needs to get up on it, because some of the best in the world, right?
I mean, I really think like the Grand Prix like this, they're going to be a great thing. And Bellator is doing one with their featherweight division as well, and they did it with the damn welterweights. Mm-hmm. My man Douglas came out, and I challenge anybody in any organization. I've trained pretty extensively with Douglas. I challenge anybody else to think that they're better welterweight than him.
Wow,
straight up, it's not gonna happen. But I mean, anyway, back to the lightweight thing. All these Grand Prix and these tournaments are gonna do is prove that. I mean, there's freaking talent out there that you just haven't heard about because they're not wearing some Reebok kit, making $2,500 off that. It's
right.
Something anti-UFC, dude. It's like I got to catch myself. I go on rants, but it's just like
I do too. And then I think a true Grand Prix is the fighting twice in one night. I mean, people like Horiguchi who had to fight 3 times in 2 days, right? That's a true test of character and will right there.
That's where I thought they were going with it when they first announced it. I was like, oh, you guys are gonna do like they did with the 100 kg Grand Prix that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Twice have a day off, fight again.
I
would rather. I don't need that swelling and stuff like coming up in between the days.
I can't imagine. I mean, look at the 2017 bantamweight one, Horiguchi he got cut by Manel Cape, I believe, and then they stitched him up. And by the time they stitched him up, it was time to go back out there again. You know what I mean? Bean stitches too.
Yeah, I like the big those backstage stitches, not the doctor.
Right. That's why I think that those are titles that, you look at Crow Cop and King Mo and some of these guys that even the Pride guys, these are titles that you hold forever. You don't defend the Grand Prix title, right? It's something really, really special. You're in the annals of history if you could win one of these.
So many guys that can say they've done that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And not only there's very few guys that can say they've won it, but there's very few guys that can even say that they've fought in a Grand Prix like that. And
Right.
that is 100% on my MMA bucket list. I'm gonna check that off. I'm gonna go bang out 3 fights tonight and walk away with a big shiny new belt and a big check with my name on it.
Big winning, big checks. Huh? Keep it on your wall back there.
They're wiring me the money. I want the big check. I want the check that I'm gonna take into the bank and be like, "Can you guys cash this?" Like, sir, you know we can't cash it. Like,
Next time we have you on the podcast, you'll just have it on your wall back there. Here's my big check. Fuck it, you know.
check it out.
So I see you still rep America. What is it like as an American living down there? Are people pretty cool to you and shit?
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Aussies are cool as hell. Everybody's chill. You know, this occasionally I'll say something and be like, "Fucking yank," you know. But
Right. What about Japan? I hear all kinds of fighters talk about the crowd there. Would you say that that's the number one thing as far as fighting in Japan?
it's a trip. It is a trip. The just the reverence and like the love that fans have for you is amazing there, and like that's very cool. But then like when you're actually in the arena in the fight, it like you always hear about it, like, and you know, like you hear about how quiet they are and how respectful they are. It trips you out how quiet they are. Like you're out there punching a dude and it is dead silent and all you can hear is katoosh, katoosh, and the thud. Your corners are just talking to you, like at the voice level I'm talking to you at, so you don't have to. It's a trip.
Unless you're Josh Barnett, right?
Yeah,
Unless you're Josh Barnett and Alyssa Garcia's in the ring and you can hear him yelling. You know,
yeah.
nobody else in the world's talking and he's yelling. No, and you know, you're really popular over there. I talk to Japanese fans and American fans alike, but just fans of Rizin, but especially in Japan. You've become really popular over there. What do you attribute that to? Is it you going on the street, things like this?
Ah, man, I kind of keep to myself. I think the thing is like I just truly appreciate like how much like the Japanese fans have like embraced me as a fighter, and then just the whole Rizin thing in general. And you know, I try to give that love back to them. I like, no bullshit. I'm not pandering. I'm not saying. I fucking love Japan. Like that place, it is so awesome. It's one of the coolest. Like I've been to a lot of places in the world, and it is hands down like one of my favorite places, if not my favorite place. It is cool as shit.
No, you know what? I've never been to Japan, and I love Japan just from other stories. I can't wait to go. I'll be going next year, and I don't know. I don't know that when my problem is I haven't went because I don't know that when I go that I'll be able to leave. Right. My daughter's going to graduate next year, and I don't know that. I mean, there's so many shows that I'd like to go see there, from Pancrase to Deep to to Rizin to Rise kickboxing. I mean, there's just so much going on there all the time. And plus the people, I have two really good friends that I went to school with that were Japanese girls, and some of the sweetest people I've ever met, them and their families. I mean, humble and not boisterous and not loud and not Americans, right?
I'm not. You gotta go. You gotta go, and don't go on a fucking diet. Go over there and eat, because those people know food.
Don't go on a diet. That's the advice. Let me get to some fan questions here, Jake. We won't keep you too much longer. I really appreciate your time. Are you a boxing fan, first of all?
Yeah, man. I appreciate the boxing for sure.
Did you watch some of the big fights, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, some of this stuff?
Yep, seen some of that stuff. Yeah, so Tyson.
You got to pick.
Anywhere else.
I saw him training with Darren Till. Did you see this?
On a video today.
Wow, he didn't look half bad, man. And if he could learn some takedowns.
Isn't their first take.
Right. If he could learn some takedown defense, but personally, I'd just rather see him stay in boxing, of course.
Make your money, bro. Don't come over and.
Well, and if you're gonna do something like that, go to a Bellator or Rizin. Let's make it a freak show. You know what I mean?
Hey, I will fight Tyson Fury in the Rizin ring, straight up.
That would be great.
We can make that happen. He can gain as much weight as he wants. I want an open weight fight.
Well, and that would be ideal for him, so he didn't have to cut weight and things like this. But
boxing, he's a bit big. They can be bigger than you can.
Oh yeah. There's not even any super heavyweight or anything there. You could be 300 pounds, and they're all right.
Yeah.
All right. I got one from Fragnicent KW. What inspired Jake to start wearing long tights in the ring?
Man, the funny thing with that is I didn't have any clothing sponsors, anything like that, and I was walking around the shops down here in Melbourne. And I was like, man, there's nothing. I was going to buy my own fight shorts for the first time in my whole career. Going to buy, you know what? I'm fighting in Japan. I can wear tight. I can wear spats. I'm going full Japanese style. I'm paying for it. I'm doing it. And this just become a thing. And like, I actually I prefer to fight them now. Oh. It's going to be a pain. Like, that being said, I'm never planning on leaving Rizin. So, use that contract negotiations, Rizin. But I'm not, it'll be a trip to have to try to go back to wearing shorts again because I just feel good in them. Like, it's better.
Mm-hmm. Well, and do you think there's any disadvantage or advantage to them in any way?
I reckon if I was fighting a leg locker, I would be a little bit more hesitant in wearing them.
Okay.
But I ain't trying to get down there anyway, bro. So
right. Trying to stand up and kick you in the face, right? So someone asked what fighting on smaller shows in Russia is like.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's what, a couple times?
No, I fought on one show in Russia this year, and God, the guy I fought, he hasn't broken through to be in the UFC or Rizin or anywhere yet. But that dude is going to be a force to be reckoned with when he gets out there. I got picked up, thrown on my head in Kimura real fast. But I broke my rib in the process. He's real good. Russia's cool though, man. They're a very martial community. Like they take that MMA real serious there. I went there, fought in this place in Siberia, and I went there and they brought me there earlier in the day, and they're having a tournament going on where there's a cage, 2 cages, and a ring. And they got kids in there fighting amateur MMA rules, pretty much full go, just wearing headgear and puff gloves. These kids are fighting 5-6 times in a day. Wow. Like a wrestler would be back home.
Damn.
And so Russia's about to be they already are, but they're about to be a real force to be reckoned with in the MMA world.
Well, in case people don't know, it's interesting you mentioned that because the UFC, today or yesterday or whatever, somebody asked the guy from the UFC when we'd start seeing children, if we would see children in the UFC.
What he was talking about, because they were kids fighting straight up. I mean, these were children, and they were throwing elbows, throwing knees. Like, I think the only rules were they had real headgear in there. I don't think they had any rotational leg locks were allowed.
Okay. Well, and then you look at like combat sambo, right, which they use headbutts and shit, man. It's just crazy.
Call that whatever you want. That's a fight with a gi top on.
right. That shit is crazy, man. Vadim Nemkov just won his 4th or 5th medal.
I think he just set the record. So he broke Fedor's record.
Yeah, just weeks after beating a guy in Bellator, right? Former champ in Bellator. This guy is crazy.
Red different, bro.
yeah, it's crazy. Well, and like you said, I think sort of like the Japanese crowd, the crowds seem to be really knowledgeable, even though they're a lot louder than the Japanese crowd, a lot more crazy. Like I watch, but anyway, but they're real knowledgeable. They know when something's happening and when something's not. There's not just a bunch of drunk people fucking woo, all the time. All right, we got Tax 73. What's your process of choosing what to walk out to?
Man, my process consists of my girl sitting over here. she is the director and everything of my
the choreographer, huh?
Choreographer, and like the area that we live in is real. It's kind of like artsy and stuff. So there's a costume shop right up the shop. So
nice.
We go in and go through the costume store and see what we can get rocking in there.
Had you ever done any kind of outlandish entrances outside of Rizin?
Nah, man. They're kind of they're really frowned upon outside of the Asian scene. They like I fought in organizations where like you'd see guys were wanting to do stuff and like the promoters were like, no, you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like just walk out and go fight. And it's what it is you see it a lot on the local levels and at the regional level is all these shows they want to be these little micro UFCs basically. So they try to run it exactly like that. And it steals guys' individuality. It steals guys' ability to like put a show out and market themselves. It's bullshit, man.
Yeah, no, I think one of the best things that Rizin's done and maybe why you've gotten so many more fans, Jake, is because people have gotten to know your personality better. I mean, just personally, I feel that way. I had seen you fight World Series of Fighting, Ultimate Fighter, but I didn't feel like I knew anything about you, unlike when the Rizin Cage, the Rizin Ring, the Rizin Confessions series. That's a big part of it, right? But what best produced MMA stuff that there is. But the entrances, it's a show. It's also fun. MMA should be fun. We're taking the fun.
You just hit the nail on the head, bro. Fighting is supposed to be fun. Like if you're not having fun with this shit, you are in the wrong sport. You're in the wrong job. Because it's like people are trying to hurt you, so you might as well have some fun in the process.
Well, and as a fan sitting at home on TV, I barely pay attention to what the guy in the UFC is coming out to, his walkout music, because you can barely hear it. First of all, half the time they barely show it. Whereas to a fan, to me, like, it's huge. I love music, so I want to hear if you're coming out to Tupac or if you're coming out to Biggie, or even if it's an outlandish entrance, I still want to hear your walkout music, right? Speaking of that, what did you start using for your music? Do you remember?
My first music.
Yeah.
Was shit. I don't even remember what my first one. I think my first. My phone's dying. I'm gonna plug it in for you.
All right. Thank you. We're almost done.
Yeah, no worries. My first walkout was actually the one it was an Ozzy Osbourne song, and then
what song? Do you remember?
I can't remember. God damn it, my bad, brother.
You're good.
Oh, here we go. No, I don't remember which one it was, and then I switched around on some other things. I was listening to Avenged Sevenfold for a while, that Hail to the King. And then for the longest, it was Motley Crue, Kickstart My Heart. And,
nice.
Then I got to Rizin, though, and I started switching things up based on what I'm doing.
See, and I love that. Fans love that. Of course, we've talked on Twitter. Make sure you follow Jake Heun on Twitter. We'll get to that. But you're gonna have something coming for the fans the next fight. We all know this. Yeah. You can't just stop the tradition now. What do you listen to in your personal time, Jake?
Personal time, I listen to like a lot of like 80s rock. I've actually been in like a really crappy new metal kick recently that's really annoying everyone around me. Yeah, exactly.
Even your lady or what?
Yeah, she just goes, yeah, you and your Limp Bizkit.
I was gonna ask too. I was gonna say, just don't say Limp Bizkit.
It's back, bro. But then, I really like Action Bronson and stuff like that also. But yeah, man, I like rock and rap.
And you just started your own podcast, right?
Yeah, man. My gym's actually doing a podcast, Absolutely Unnecessary Podcast. We had Craig Jones on last week. And yeah, it's interesting, man. It's an interesting vibe. I enjoy it.
Where can people find that?
They can find it on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. It's the Absolutely Unnecessary Podcast.
Yeah, I advise everyone to go check it out. Yeah, it's really good. You're doing a good job with that, Jake. I think that that's a good platform for you. Someone named Johnny Chavez says, just tell him I love the Star-Lord dance, and he wants you to do it again at some point.
Yeah, we got to bring 2 movies, so we'll have more Star-Lord, I reckon.
Right. Yeah, gotta know. What else do you do in your free time? Like, do you climb mountains? Do you ride bikes? What do you do?
Drink beer, brother.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I like to travel. Like, honestly, I do like to. I like to drink, go hang out. I like to travel a lot. When I get the time. The only downside is the more my body gets beat up, the less I like being on planes.
Right.
But I really enjoy traveling. Like, I'm planning a trip right now. Hopefully for after this Rizin fight, unconfirmed Rizin fight, that going to Vietnam, and me and the missus are talking about getting like a motorcycle with a sidecar and driving from Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi.
Nice.
And just kind
of. Has she ever been with you to America?
Yeah, she moved to the States with me for a little while. I was living in Atlanta when I was in the PFL stuff.
Okay. And
we stayed over there for a bit, and then got the fuck out.
What would you say your favorite country to be in besides Japan is?
My favorite country being besides Japan, shit. I like Oz. I love the States. You know what though? I love Latin America, man. Mm-hmm. Anywhere down there, I'm just pretty happy. I love it down there.
Oh yeah. You can't go wrong with that answer, right? That's and a couple more things here. The 10-minute first round. Have you ever fought in a fight that was a 10-minute first round? Was your jury fight 10 minutes?
My jury fight was, yeah.
Okay, and then given it didn't go past 10 minutes, of course, but
it ended in the first. I hate that when I look down the record, it says ended in the first round. I was like, well, it was 9 minutes in.
Right. Right. Which is where he finished a lot of people, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's an interesting aspect. I think from a fan's perspective, and if you're trying to kind of keep moving this thing forward. I reckon the 3-5s is the best way. I've got no problem fighting the 10-5. I think it's interesting, and it makes the game a lot more strategic and tactical.
Mm-hmm.
But also, as a striking-based fighter, in case I do get stuck on bottom and can't get up, I like that 3
right. 5. Right. No, and I think, like I said, I think that it changes fights in different ways. I wonder what him and Albertson and him and Vadim Nemkov, when they fought, Nemkov was just done after the first round because it was that 1 10-minute round that he probably had never done before, right?
No, and they're really difficult to train for. It's really, really difficult to train for that 10-minute first round. You gotta. So when I was doing it at Tiger Muay Thai for that one, and basically during sparring, I would everybody else would be sparring 5s, and then I'd spar my 5-minute round, and I'd have a guy jump in right as that was finishing off. So I'd go, then I'd run the minute break everybody else run, then I'd just run the rest of that next round. So I'd do an 11-minute round. But like I had to have a guy ready to go right away every time. So it's a pain in the ass.
Damn. Let me ask you this: when you fought in Rizin 3 times, have you ever went out into the crowd and watched the rest of it after you were done?
No, I usually kick it in the back a bit.
They do let you, right? I've had some fighters tell me that they do go out there sometimes, right? Some people do.
They let you go out there for sure. Like I'll go and I'll stand out there a bit and watch it. Depending on where I'm, what happens with this next one. If I'm there for if I'm there for the New Year's Eve show, right. I will probably pop my head outside. I mean, you gotta take that shit in.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And as far as like this last one, you just watch it from home with the lady on Fight TV or wherever you guys watch it.
Yeah, we just streamed it on Fight TV, the Rizin 18 and 19. Yeah.
And you do fighter meetings with Showdown Joe and Frank Trigg, right? Shout out to those guys. Those guys are real cool. They do a good job. I just think that for a fan who hasn't seen Rizin, they need to tune in to one of your fights. Tune in to. I watched the first one on Match TV, Russian TV, right? Can't even understand a damn word. Yeah. That's how into it I was. But I knew it was going to be something great because I knew that Dream and Heroes and Pride and all that was great. And I just think that the federation could get a lot more fans if people would just give it a chance. You know what I mean? Because it's more than just your typical MMA show.
100%, man. It's at the end of the day, like the one thing that they've really adopted over there is it's entertainment, and it's not entertainment in a hokey, bullshitty sense. It's entertainment in that they're gonna match up fights that are going to create fireworks. Like we watched that last card, and there wasn't a boring fight in it. It was not a boring fight. It is very rare that I will sit here and say that a 115-pound female fight was very entertaining. Yeah. But that little Korean girl, my favorite fighter right now, Ham.
Oh, she's really good.
Savage. And I was sitting backstage with her before the opening ceremony, and I looked at, we all had our hands wrapped. I looked down, she just had a single line of tape around her wrist. I'm like, oh, this girl's got to be a grappler. And then she goes out and just knees the face of that girl, and I'm like, oh, this girl's a
and the girl she need the shit out of was Tomo Masawa, the deep Jules champion, right? It's not like it's not like she's a nobody, and she need her into abyss.
Yeah, she's amazing, man. She's and that's one thing I do like that what Rizin is doing is they're giving a platform for some of these people who normally wouldn't have it based on their weight class and stuff. Also,
well, she was in the UFC, right? She was in the UFC, and she was fighting way above her weight class, and
been having classes above.
When that's like, that's the only time that you've seen this girl really lose that much was, when she's fighting way high. But I think, again, like we're talking about, Ayaka Hamasaki, best in the world at that weight class, right? I mean, you got some of these bantamweights, Horiguchi, some of these guys, Victor Henry, Manel Cape, some of the best in the world at bantamweight. I think that everyone just has this perception that if you're the best in the world, you're going to be here in America or some shit. And I think that
even though I took the L to him, I would love to see some of these ranked light heavyweights in the UFC go up against Jiri. I'm sorry, that's some bitch can fight.
Oh man. No, and that's good of you to say. And I know you from, when you fought my dude Roll Key and stuff, you're always truthful, whether you win or lose. But the point is and I talk to Jiri, and I feel the same way. I try to stay as unbiased as possible and just watch MMA. but go up
Yeah.
against Jiri Prohaska, go up against, like I said, go up against Jake Heun, and especially that rule set. I think that rule set changes a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And of course, we're not going to see the UFC send their guys over, because we saw what happened with Chuck Liddell, right?
Got it.
You know, I don't want that shit no more. But I do
Yeah.
think that we can see things like KSW and Bellator and One maybe, and some of these other promotions coming to the table, and maybe we get your open weight Grand Prix that Jake Heun wants, right?
So great. It'd be the greatest thing ever. Yeah, and just especially speaking with KSW, there's some great fights over there. You sent over Mohamed Khalidov, guys like that, and I mean, there's some great dudes you could bring over from KSW. That is one promotion that I would have an interest in fighting in if Rizin were to like send a band of people over there.
Yeah, they just had a great event today. I believe it was today. Yeah, it was a KSW 51. Yeah, Pujanowski. Yeah, that's great. But like you said with that last Rizin, there wasn't one boring fight. I had a new fan, let's say, his friend, and I sent him one of my codes for Fight TV, and I said, hey, just watch this when you get a chance. You don't have to watch it live. I mean, even though you should, right? I'm in Colorado, so it starts at about 11 p.m. I watch it live. It's got to be watched live for me, right? But that's MMA. But anyway, he was impressed with how he didn't know anybody really on the card. And he was impressed with how every single fight was either a finish or really, really exciting. He also really liked the kickboxing aspect. And we're going to end on this. Would you be interested in a kickboxing bout?
Yep.
Because you're that kind of fighter that I could see doing that.
Oh, 100%. I've already told Shingo if they want to match me a kickboxing match, I will take it. Send over some of those glory boys. We'll have a good time.
Well, yeah. Well, we want to thank you so much, Jake. Can you give out your social media so people can follow you?
Guys, give me a follow on Instagram at Honeybear MMA and on Twitter at Jake Heun. Nobody uses Facebook. Sorry, Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
But man, I really appreciate you having me on. And guys, let Rizin know y'all definitely want to see me on New Year's Eve.
Oh yeah, the fans will let them know. I've already let them know many times. We got you, Jake. Thanks so much for being on, man. Hope to have you on after your unconfirmed New Year's Eve fight.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Later.